Hi everybody. Hello, thanks for joining me. Um, I'm just smiling to myself because I see that we've got there's 27 people on the on Facebook at the moment, and there's one angry face from Denise. And I know that you didn't mean that, Denise. Sometimes your finger slips. It looks funny. Um, yeah, it's not the first time that's happened. Anyway, I'm really pleased to see you tonight, and I'm really looking forward to making this magnolia flower with you. Now, it's this natural felt, and sometimes it can look a little bit washed out. So if you see me doing this a lot tonight, I'm kind of shielding it from the bright light above me and to the sides as well, so that it doesn't look too kind of glaring. Hope you're all well tonight. I've been really looking forward to this one because it's a little bit different from some of the other flowers that we've been making. It's much bigger, so this will be the biggest one that we've made so far. And a lot of people were saying, oh, I'm really looking forward to the challenge. So it's not difficult, but you'll learn a few different techniques tonight for making the leaves and so on. Also, the stem is much thicker than any of the other stems that we've made before. So let's get started. So I'm going to just switch over to this overhead, and we will go through all the bits and pieces that you need for your workshop tonight to make sure that you've got everything. I know that some of you, sorry, wrong button. I know, Denise, don't worry about it. Oh look, there's two angry faces now, so you're not alone, Denise. Yeah, some of you are already prepared and you've cut all your felt, which is great. So if you have, that's super. If you haven't, then I'm just going to give you a tip about cutting the felt when we come to that. So for tonight, you've got your template sheet, which is this one here. And this, of course, tells you the sizes that you need to cut from the felt. Now, you don't actually need to cut the rectangles out of the paper. You can just look at the sizes and use them to measure out your felt and to cut it that way. I really love my roller cutter. I've got a couple of different kinds, but this one here, and I know that these are easily available from Amazon as well. So this is a Prim one. The roller cutter is really good if you're making lots of flowers. You can stack up several sheets of felt at once and just cut through, and it makes it much more quick and much more accurate as well. So the roller cutter, do make sure though that you get one of the self-healing cutting mats, because you can't use the roller cutter straight onto your table because it will definitely mark it, and it just doesn't work as well. So you need a mat and a roller cutter, or a pair of sharp scissors. So any sharp scissors. I'm a big fan of Fiskars, so that my Fiskars dressmaking scissors for cutting out the bigger pieces of felt. And we will be using these bigger scissors to cut the petal shapes out tonight as well. So a pair of larger scissors. And just before I move the templates to the side, so I was going to just to say, if you do want to cut out the rectangles, just make sure that when you print out your templates, if you're printing this out from a PDF, from a download, make sure that you've set your printer to be 100% size. Otherwise, you might find that your the sizes of the rectangles and the squares are slightly smaller or slightly bigger than they should be. It doesn't really matter because everything will be proportionate, but they just might not match up exactly with the measurements that are on the template. So just something to be aware of. So you won't need that tonight if you've got all of your pieces cut out already. I've got my pieces of felt here. So I've got 2 pieces of the green for the leaves. I've got 1 strip of the pale yellow for the stamen. I've got 5 little squares for the sepals, which are these little sort of leaf type petals that go underneath the main bloom. These sepals protect the flower while it's still in bud, and will talk about these a little bit later when we come to cut them out, but I've actually coloured them with some brown pastel underneath. Then you've got 3 different sizes of the natural felt. So you've got a small, a medium and a large, which is only a little bit bigger than the medium. And you can see here, if I show you the bloom, you've got the small ones. There are 3 on the inside there, 1, 2, 3. And then you've got the medium ones, which kind of go on the middle. And then the larger ones are on the outside there. So we've got those, we've got our large scissors, we've got a smaller pair of scissors, which are handy for cutting out the smaller flowers, but you might not need, actually you will need your small scissors for cutting the fringe on the stamen in the middle. We've got floristry tape. Now I've got 2 different colours tonight. So I've got dark green and I've also got dark brown. But if you've only got one colour, it doesn't matter. You can use either green or brown. If you've got both, then that's fine. I've used dark brown for the main stem and I've used the green for the leaves, but it really doesn't matter. You can use either or you can use both of them. And then I've got 2 pieces of pastel, and these are from the Inscribed Pastels, which I'll just show you if anybody hasn't yet got these and you want to get some. Oh, it's upside down. So the box of Inscribed Pastels, they are chalk pastels and they are about 10 or 11 pounds for the whole box from Amazon. And I'll just show you, I know a lot of you have seen this before, but just for those people who haven't seen all the lovely colours, this is what you get in the box. They're quite small pieces. And lots of beautiful colours that you'll be able to use to colour the petals and the leaves of lots of different flowers. So they are worth investing in. I think that's a nicer effect than using pens or crayons on the felt, because it doesn't drag the felt, and also you can blend it more easily. So I'd highly recommend you get the Inscribed Pastels, or alternatively you can use eyeshadow. And then I think there's also some hair colouring that you can use as well. I haven't tried that, and I actually haven't tried eyeshadow either, but I know that some people do use that. So I've got 2 different colours here. I've got this sort of coppery colour, and that goes on the tips of the petals and also underneath at the back of the petals. And I've got this dark brown colour, which I have coloured in one side of the sepals, and actually underneath the leaves I've coloured, I don't know how well that's showing up, I've coloured in with a kind of coppery, the lighter brown colour. So those are the chalk pastels. I've got my wire cutters, which I might need for cutting down the wire for the leaves. And I've got my floristry stems, and I've got 3 large ones. Let me put these pastels down. I've got 3 of the thicker ones, and all 3 of these are going to go together to make the stem, because the stem is going to be a bit thicker, because the magnolia really is a bush or a tree. So it's not a flimsy stem, it's more like a twig or a branch that the bloom sits on. So we're going to use 3 of the thicker stems together to make the main stem, if you like. And then the thinner ones are for the leaves. And that's all your bits and pieces. If you haven't switched on your glue gun, then now is the time to do it. So you give it a good chance to heat up. So I'll just check that mine is on, which it is. We always have a bit of a glue gun discussion. So any questions about the use of glue guns, pop them in the comments. And oh, one more thing to show you, because I say this every week and I'm never organised, but this week I actually have been very organised, and I have got a damp cloth. And the reason for the damp cloth is so that if you're using the pastels and your fingers get a bit chalky, then you've just got this handy just to wipe your fingers on, especially when you're working with pale colour felt like this. So you don't want to end up with lots of dusty coloured chalk or pastels in the wrong place. So quite handy to keep a cloth. You could use baby wipes, but I prefer a cloth that I can just put in the washing machine. It's a little bit more environmentally friendly. So I've got that with me tonight as well. There we go, there's its first use. Great. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments box and I will look up every now and then. I can't always see everybody's names, but Rebecca is on the workshop as well to help out with anything. And I see Stephanie's here tonight as well. Hi, Stephanie. It's really great that you could join us as well. So we're going to get started. I'm going to move some of these bits and bobs out of the way. And we're going to get started by, first of all, covering the 3 thicker stems in the floristry tape. So I'm going to use the dark brown tape, but green will be fine. So you use whatever colour you want. Now floristry tape, it is sticky, but it doesn't have glue on it, it's waxy, which means that when you use it and you warm it up in your hands a bit, it gets stickier. So if you find that the first little bit of tape that you tear off feels a bit dry and not very sticky, just tear that off and just put that in the bin or on the floor. I do tidy up afterwards, honestly, but yeah, just tear off that first bit and then you will feel that the tape just feels a little bit stickier to work with. So this first step, what you want to do is cover all 3 stems at once with the floristry tape. So you need to get it stuck around the top as best you can. If you need to use a little bit of glue, then do so, because quite often just getting it stuck around the top to start with is the trickiest bit. And once it's stuck round and you've got it wrapped around a few times, and just make sure that it is stuck to itself and it's not just kind of spinning around the stems. Make sure also that your stems are more or less lined up together. Then you can start pulling the tape round at a bit of an angle, keeping all 3 stems together. The tape has a little bit of a stretch in it so that you can pull it, but just don't pull it too hard. You don't want it to rip. If it does, don't worry about it. You can just sort of pat the ripped piece down into place and then start again going over the top with a new piece of tape. So we're just working all the way down. You hear the birds in the garden again tonight. It's been quite nice here today. I've had a very unusual afternoon. Absolutely nothing to do with work, which is most unusual for me on a Friday afternoon. We have a phone box right outside, and it's a bit of a landmark in the village. So if anybody's ever looking for the Crafty Kit Company and they want to come and see us, and I want to tell them where we are, there are 2 landmarks I always use. I say we're right opposite the butcher in the middle of the high street, and we've got a red phone box outside. And it's actually right outside our Anne's office, which used to be my office. So it's amazing the number of people who come, and the phone box doesn't work anymore, but the number of people who come and have their photograph taken just sort of with the door open made me realise, you know, it's quite unusual to see an old-fashioned red phone box these days. Anyway, cut a long story short, a subcommittee of our community council have bought the phone box for £1, and we've got plans. I've joined this little subcommittee, and yeah, they bought it for £1, and we spent the afternoon, me and Julia and Jill spent the afternoon going around some of the small villages in East Lothian looking at phone boxes and looking to see what other communities have done with their phone boxes. And there's some brilliant ideas. So if you're local to East Linton, watch this space. It's very exciting. It involves stained glass, which I think will look absolutely amazing, but the whole phone box needs cleaning up. Okay, I've covered all three stems together all the way to the end, and now I just want to make sure this last bit is going to stick down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a little bit of glue, a very small amount of glue, just onto the end of the tape. And just roll it around just to make sure that last bit is stuck down and that the whole thing is not going to come unraveled. There we are. And it doesn't matter which end you decide is the flower end. I might actually use the end that I've finished up with to wrap the stamen around, because it's a little bit thicker, which is fine. That's exactly what you want at that end. So once your three pieces of wire are covered, you can pop that to one side. And we're going to make the stamen from the long piece of pale yellow felt. And I'll just show you, because the inside of this is a little bit different what I did. And you can do this as well if you want to, if you're going to make another one, which, let's face it, once you've made one, you probably will want to carry on and make lots of these, because they are gorgeous. I've also put another layer of stamen around the yellow, and it's just in the same sort of natural colour. So if you want to do that, you put your yellow on first and then wrap another layer of sort of white fringe around it, and it just kind of bulks out the centre there. If you have a look, if you do a Google image for magnolia flowers and you have a look, you'll see that is kind of how they look in the middle there. But we're just going to go with the pale yellow tonight. So you'll need your small sharp scissors for this, and what you want to do is just take your scissors and cut a fringe all the way along. So each little snip goes sort of 2/3 or 3/4 of the way down the felt. Just take your time, because you don't want to end up snipping all the way through. So just take your time and snip all the way along to the end. There we go. So that you end up with this little fringe, and this is going to become your stamen. So we're going to wrap this around the end of your covered wire, and you want to make sure that the end of the wire is enclosed, so that it's not, so you're not gluing it on here so that the wire is poking out the top. You want to start gluing it so that the end of the wire is going to be sort of hidden inside the fringing there. So we'll just start by putting a little bit of glue, and just be careful with the glue when you're working with small pieces like this, because this is when it's easy to burn yourself. A little bit of glue on the end there just to start with. And then I'm just going to stick that down. This glue that I'm working with is very stringy, but I'm going to just not worry about all the glue strings, and I'll pull them all off afterwards. Okay, so a little bit of glue to start attaching it, then I'm going to roll it round, and then once I've rolled it round, I'm going to just put a little bit of glue on the rest of the felt so that I can roll it up. Like that. And that'll dry quite quickly. Oops, out of shot. There we go. Okay. So that's our stamen. Now, if you wanted to, I wonder if I should just, I'm just going to show you actually what to do if you want to put some white around it. So if you want to do this now, you can, and I'll just take my time if you want to follow along with me. You can leave it just like this and miss out this next step, or you can add some white as well, some natural. So I've got the natural felt here. This is like a whole sheet, and all I'm going to do, I'm not even going to measure this. I'm just going to cut another strip. It's probably about the same size. It's not very straight looking, but I think it doesn't matter. Take my sharp scissors, and again, I'm just going to cut along. So I think I might have cut this natural piece a little bit longer than the yellow, not deliberately, but that's fine because it'll just wrap around and it'll just keep going. There we go. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue onto the end. So just in more or less the same way that we added the yellow, but this time I'm going to just add it a little bit further down so that when you wrap it around the yellow, it's just coming a little bit further down. It's not, the edges aren't meeting at the top. So I'm just going to add a little bit more glue onto the bottom here. Roll it round. And a little bit more. Go and give it a little squeeze just at the bottom there. So it's added quite a bit more bulk onto the middle of the flower, which is fine as well. So you've got this sort of 2 layers and lots of glue threads, glue strings, get rid of them. There we go. So pale yellow in the middle and the natural around the outside. You don't need to add the extra layer of natural on if you don't want, but it looks quite nice, I think. Okay. So when we've got this center piece done, what we're going to do next is going to move on to making the first 3 petals. So we start with the smaller petals in the middle, and then we work round and the medium and the large on the outside. So to create the petal shapes, so let's have a little look at them. They're quite sort of long and narrow, and they've got this, it's almost like kind of like a heart shape out of the top of them, and a little bit of colour there, just kind of in the middle of that little dip there. So we will I'm going to use the big scissors for these. So take your piece of felt, fold it in half. You'll find the smaller petals are a little bit more tricky. There's less felt to hang on to. And you're going to cut from around about halfway along from the bottom, and you're just going to come up and round the outside in a bit of a curve, and then you're going to come across the top and down into the fold, so that when you open it up, you've got something that looks a little bit like a heart without the pointy bit at the bottom. So you've got 3 chances to practice this. So there's the first one. So again, fold your felt in half, and your scissors go in about halfway along the bottom, and they curve out towards the outside, and then round the top and down into the fold. The second one, And you know it doesn't matter if they all look slightly different. And then the third one. I'm loving all the suggestions, by the way, for the foam boxes. So I'm just having a look. Actually, 2 of the foam boxes that we saw had defibrillators in them, and we don't need that because we've actually got 2 already in the village. We don't have any pretty phone boxes. A phone book library. So yeah, there's quite a lot of phone boxes that are used as sort of book nooks, and we did think about that. We've looked into that. What can happen is that they become a little bit untidy, and people sometimes just use them as a way of just kind of getting rid of their old books, which is the idea. But then if you end up with too many, then you have an issue. So we're thinking about maybe using it for different things throughout the year, and which would be quite nice, kind of ring the changes. So there we go. There's our 3 small petals, and we want to just give these a little bit of colour. So I'm just going to tear a little piece of paper out of that notebook. So if you work on a piece of paper, got my cloth handy. So you want this kind of colour of pastel or chalk or eyeshadow. It's like a kind of coppery brown colour. And all you're going to do is add just a little bit in the dip there. So just do that on each one. And if you want to just smudge it a little bit with your finger, which is quite a good idea, just to make sure that it's actually completely sort of stuck fast to the felt and it's not just sitting on the surface. So just kind of rub it in a little bit. And then we can go ahead and we can glue these straight onto the stamen. So these 3 petals, if I move all the other ones away so that you can see, you want to try and get them sort of evenly spaced. So we'll go with 1 at the top and then evenly space the other 2 around. Now the Magnolia petals, if you want to, so we quite often do this when we're making felt flowers, we kind of twist them up and we give them a little bit of a stretch just to give them a bit more texture. But actually when you have a look at a Magnolia bloom, the petals are quite smooth. They're not really very crinkly. So when I made this flower, I didn't actually do anything else to the petals. I just left the felt exactly as it was. So you want to put your glue onto the same side as the colour. So you're going to add a bit of glue to the bottom and then stick it just right down at the base of the stamen. So there's the first one in place. And just hold it down until the glue's dried. The first one stuck on. That's how it looks on the back. And the other 2. Glue. And we're going to go with one on this side. And then the last one. Now, if you find that the petals are quite floppy, you can bring your glue a little bit further up the petal and not just have it right on the very end here. So you can actually put more glue a little bit further up and it'll just keep it attached more to the stamen. But just see, I quite like that, you know, you see magnolia blooms in all different stages, obviously, when they're quite closed. And then once they're fully opened, they're much more sort of, I suppose, like this one. And actually, I really love the ones that I've got pink on them as well. So once you know how to make the basic flower shape, you can really sort of look at all of the different colours of felt that you've got, or the different colours of pastels, and you can add some different colours as well. So there's our first three, the smaller petals onto the round the stamen. They're kind of evenly placed, so that's good. And I'm just going to leave them exactly like that. And then we're going to go with the next size up. So that's your medium one. And again, it's exactly the same idea for making the petal shape. So fold your felt in half and take your larger scissors, and you will find this easier with the larger scissors. You can just make the shape in fewer cuts rather than kind of snip, snip, snip with the small scissors. So again, because this felt is wider, we want to start a bit closer to the folded edge. So I'm starting less than 1 centimetre in, and I'm going to curve it out towards the outside edge and bring it round to the top and then down, so that you have this kind of shape when you open up. And actually, as you can see, it's a bit straight each side here because I just missed, the scissors just came off the edge as I was coming round. So what I'm going to do is just, I'll do it while it's open. I'm just going to take the scissors round to curve those bits. Square petals is definitely not something that you see in nature. So there's one. And next one. So again, you're starting less than 1 centimetre in from the folded edge. Bring your scissors round to the side, curve them up and across the top, and then down into the dip. There's two. And the third one. In and round. And a little dip. So there's our 3 medium petals. And again, with your coppery coloured pastels, a little bit of colour. It's quite subtle. Just in that little dip at the top there. And just take your finger if you're using the pastels and just make sure that it's firmly set into the felt. I'm loving my handy cloth. That's a game changer. There we go. Now with these 3 larger petals, what we want to do is we want to position them midway between the 3 smaller ones. So we're going to put one here, and one here. And they'll be kind of more or less evenly spaced. So slightly larger petal, so slightly more glue. So here's the first one. Just hold it in place. So again, your glue always goes on the same side that the colour is on. And then the second one. So just turn it round. So it's going to go in between the 2 smaller petals, but it's also going to overlap the first of the medium ones that you put on. So it's just going to go in about there. And then the third one, hopefully, will just sort of meet up and overlap the first 2. So it's the third one. And that's going to go here. and you can tell that it's getting quite bulky at the base of the flower, and that's fine. And all of this is going to be covered up with the sepal petals anyway, so don't worry about that. Just give it a little squeeze while the glue is still warm. Okay. And then we're going to cut our last 3 petals. Now these petals are a little bit different in the colour, so they've still got this bit of colour at the top, but they've also got a bit of colour on the other side as well. So they've just got a little bit of a kind of stripe of colour just at the base there. Oops, leaves in the way. Okay. So same idea for cutting them, fold them in half. Now these larger ones, they're almost square, so just check that you've actually got them with the long side vertically before you fold it. So just fold in half and come in quite close again, just less than a centimetre, and this time you need to kind of swoop out to the side and round and take that dip out with the top. And then the second one, oops, get that lined up. So we'll swoop it out to the side, round, go, and the third one. So you can see with these Magnolia, they're much less fiddly in terms of cutting. You don't have the kind of the lots and lots of tiny petals to cut that you do with something like the lavender or the violas, but they're challenging in a different way. Okay, with 3 of the larger petals now. So again, we're going to put a little bit of colour at the top. So we'll do all of the tops first of all. 1, 2, and 3, and I'm just going to give those a little rub with my finger before I turn them over. And then flip them over. And this time you want to take your chalk or whatever you're using to, it might be a felt tip pen or it might be a crayon, and you just want to make a little bit of a line from the base. So it's just to add a little bit of colour kind of coming up vertically from the bottom of the petal. I'll show you that more close up. Okay, so there's one. So just hold on to the base of the petal. Some of this will be hidden behind the sepals anyway, so it looks, it looks like there's quite a lot of colour on. Actually, I've done that one on the wrong side, so you want to make sure it's on this side. So you've got your little bit of colour at the top on one side, and on the other side you've got the colour at the base of the petal. So I want to flip that one over. Okay. So again, you're still going to be adding your glue to the side that's got the colour at the top of the petal. So exactly the same, this is the last round of petals, and we're going to be just overlapping them and somewhere between the joins of each of the 3 sort of medium-sized petals. So we'll go for the first one. And we'll pop that there. So my glue gun is about to start running low on glue. So you can see that the glue stick is no longer sticking out of the end, but I'm not quite ready to put a new glue stick in because there's not enough room in there for it to sort of grab onto it. So I'm just going to keep an eye on that. When you do put a new glue stick in, just remember you don't need to push it in. The glue guns are designed so that when you pull the trigger, the mechanism will actually pull the glue stick through the gun by itself. You definitely don't need to push or force the glue stick into the gun. So we've got one, and then we'll put the next one on just here. And then the last one is just going to fit quite neatly into that space there. So again, glue always on the side with the colour at the top. Go. And that just go on there. Don't know if you can see on my camera when I'm using the glue, there is a tiny little bit of smoke comes out of the glue gun when I pull the trigger, and that is completely normal as well. It is quite hot. There. Okay. How's that looking? I'm just going to read a couple of our questions. Actually, it's not question. Heather has a glue gun hack. If you put a dab of hot glue on your new glue stick before inserting, it won't fall out. That is a brilliant idea. Genius, Heather. Top marks to Heather. I love that. I never thought about doing that. It's a really good idea. I'm going to try that next time I insert a new glue stick into there. Okay, I've got all my petals on. I'm actually quite, let me just swap over the camera views because I'm quite close to this overhead camera, but it's just to show you. There we go. So that's how it's looking so far. There we go, that's better. And it's still quite tight. So the sample one is quite kind of floppy looking, and this one, just because it's not been handled very much, is still quite nicely formed. No, I mean this one's nice as well, but I'll probably sort of move the petals around afterwards. But that's how it's looking at the moment. So hope you're managing to keep up. But in any case, it doesn't matter because you can always watch this back again afterwards. So if we've got our petals on, we've got 9 petals. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to stick the sepal petals underneath the main white blooms. So the sepals are these 5 little leaves, kind of leaf-shaped petals that go underneath. And I have put a little bit of dark brown chalk pastel on each one. So you'll need your 5 little squares of felt for these. And I'm going to use the smaller scissors to cut the shapes. So I'm just going to fold in half, take my small scissors, and I'm going to cut a leaf shape. So I'm going to start quite close to the folded edge. I'm going to come round to the edge and then right up to the folded edge at the top. And then when we open it up, we have this leaf shape. So there's one. Again, start quite close to the folded edge, round to the outside edge and right up to the top so that you have that nice point at the top. And the third one. Now with the sepals, These actually do look better if they're a little bit crinkly, and we can do that just by giving them a little twist. So once you've cut out all 5 of them, and before you add any colour, so it's always a good idea to do any kind of twisting or stretching of the felt before you add the colour on, so that you're not sort of rubbing the colour off. So just pick up your petal and literally just twist it in your fingers like that. Just give it a real twist. And then when you open it up again, you'll see it's just got a bit more texture to it. Looks a bit more natural. So there's one. So I'm just also having a look at more comments about phone boxes. So Stephanie says our local phone boxes are charging stations, and one is a coffee station. Wow. I'm loving that idea. Right outside our house as well. Stephanie, you need to tell us how that works. Is it if there's a coffee machine inside, or who looks after it? I'd like to know about that. So there's our 4th and our last sepal petal. Is there. And the colour that I'm using, now none of the colours in the Inscribe Pastels box are named, so I'm afraid I don't know what colour this is. It's just one of the dark browns. And I'm just going to add, doesn't matter which side you do this on because they're both sides the same, but I'm just literally going to take my pastel and add, it's quite dark, isn't it? Can you see that? So there's the side with the chalk on it, and there's the side without. So I've just kind of coloured in one side. I'll do that for all 5 of them. I'm using the side of the pastel to do this for no other reason other than it's just a little bit quicker. And it's quite nice once you've got the leaves quite sort of crinkly looking, because if you do this, if you kind of colour them in with the side of the pastel, it picks up the texture and it just looks a little bit more natural, I think. So there's the 5th one. And that is quite messy on your fingers, so a bit of a wipe with a cloth. And this time you're going to put the glue again on the side of the petal or the side of the leaf that's got the colour on it, so that if you want to, you can sort of pull these back a little bit and you'll see a little bit of the colour showing underneath. So we're going to stick the sepals all around the base of the flower at the back there. So we want 5 of these. So a bit of glue on the base. Move the mouse. And this time we're going to actually come down and stick them more sort of onto the stem rather than the petal itself, so that you're narrowing everything down. You don't want to keep building up bulk around the base of the flower. You want to actually start to kind of cover up the edge here. So I'm going to add a little bit more glue because that just dried as I was talking to you. And we're going to stick the first one here. And the next one. So they're overlapping and they're sticking onto the stem rather than the flower. So there's 2. Definitely need to put another glue stick in. Use the 3rd one. So glue stick time. I'm literally just going to push it in the, oh no, what was I going to do, Heather? I'm going to put a little dab of glue onto the end of the new glue stick. This is Heather's Hacks. And then push it in. Oh, look at that. And then it sticks to the old glue stick. That's brilliant. Love that. Don't put too much glue though on the end of the new glue stick, otherwise you might get glue on the inside of this bit here. That's a great hack. Okay, where were we? We've got 3 on, and here's the 4th one. And I've actually, so 4 on mine has met, it's come all the way around. So I have got an extra one here, and I'm going to add it on anyway, and I'm just going to make it overlap one of the others that's already on here. So I'm just going to choose a space. Here looks good, and just pop that on. And I've got a little bit of extra glue squidging out there. So what I'm going to do with that glue, I'm not going to try and touch it just now because it's going to be really hot, but when it's just before it hardens completely, I'm just going to pull it away. There we go. Okay. Get rid of that. Right, Stephanie, a local company has a mobile coffee unit, and connects up to the electric inside the box and dispenses coffee. It's a bit of a novelty, as I think it is quite impractical. So, okay, is there somebody there then, Stephanie? Is there somebody actually there dispensing the coffee, or is it just the company pitches up and rigs it up and then comes back? Anyway, could be an interesting thing to do, maybe on like on a day when there's lots of people in the village, like a gala day or something. Could be a good thing to do. So we have our bloom with our petals, and we've got our sepal petals around the base, and it's all looking beautiful, I think, so far. So the last thing that we want to do is to make the leaves. And this is a bit of a different technique for you, because the leaves are actually made in 2 parts. And by making them in 2 parts, you get the impression of the sort of the vein that runs down the middle of the leaf. So it's really easy, but it's just it's kind of a different way of doing it. And then underneath, I did put some of the coppery coloured pastel on there to give it a bit of colour. So what we will need for the leaves is you will need, if you've got 2 leaves, you'll need your thinner floristry stem, and you will need some green floristry tape to cover the stem. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take 1 stem and I'm going to cut it in half, because I think that half is going to be enough for 1 leaf. So I'll just use my wire cutters. Now with this thinner floristry stem, you can probably cut it with scissors, but definitely don't use your good scissors to do this. And you also could probably, if you don't have wire cutters, I think you could probably cut it with nail clippers. I have to say, I haven't tried it, but it's I think you could probably manage that. I'm not sure about the thicker wire. It's quite good to invest in a pair of wire cutters anyway, if you're going to be making lots of these flowers. So for the petals, now I'm just going to measure this. Okay. I'm going to use these ones, but they're going to be a little bit short. Okay, so you've got 3 stems in here. It depends on how far out from the main stem you want the leaves to come. So there's quite a bit of wire on here actually. I'm just going to use these smaller ones, but if you want these to come further out, then go with a whole piece of the thinner wire. and you'll see how this works in a second. So you've got your pieces of wire ready. It's 1 piece per leaf, and you'll need your bigger pieces of green felt, so the long rectangular pieces. What you're going to do first of all is you're going to fold it in half to make one leaf shape. So just in the usual way, you're going to put your scissors in, and you're going to put them in quite close to the folded edge, so about 1/3 centimetre this time, and then swoop out to the side and right round to a point at the top. So you get something that just looks like a very kind of standard leaf shape, and that's exactly what magnolia leaves look like. We'll do that with the other one. So again, fold it in half. Start quite close, out to the side. Round to the top. And there's our second one. Now, you're going to cut these in half, and to help you, if you are not confident that you can get these exactly in half, and they don't need to be really precise, but what you can do is just fold the leaf and just press it down, press the fold down to give you a guide for cutting. So when you open it back up, you can see that you've got that line there that you can cut. And just take your scissors, your large scissors are best for this, just take your scissors and just snip all the way up to the top so that you've got 2 halves. We'll do the same with the other one. Fold it in half, give it a good press so that it gives you a guide for cutting. Open it up, and then take your large scissors and cut all the way up to the point. Now what you're going to do is you're going to glue the stem onto 1/2 of the leaf. It doesn't need to be glued onto the entire leaf. You can start it halfway down, but having some of the wire stem inside the leaf, obviously you need that to attach it to the main stem, but it's just enough to allow you to bend the leaf a little bit, just to give it a little bit of, so it's just not sticking straight out from the branch. So we're going to just take our glue gun and add a thin line of glue where we want the stem to be. Now you can either add the glue straight to the leaf, or you could, if you have a good aim, you could add your glue straight onto the stem. And I think it's easier to add it to the leaf, and then just position your stem into the glue. I'll show you kind of close up so that you can see. And just let that dry. We'll do the other one the same. So again, a thin strip of glue, get it as close to the edge as you can. You don't want lots and lots of glue, because you'll see that glue once you overlap the other half of the leaf. And then position your stem, get it as close as you can to the edge of the felt. And then it doesn't need to dry completely, because you're going to be adding a little bit more glue on in a second anyway. So you don't want to get my 2 halves mixed up, although they look quite similar, but we'll go back to the first one. And the aim is to stick this half on top of the half that you've just glued, like that. So what you want to do is, Jessie chiming, you want to take your glue gun. This time you want to put a little bit of glue all the way down the edge from the top, all the way down, back over the wire and the bit of glue that you've already got on there, right down to the bottom. And take the second half of the leaf and just pop it on top so that it's just covering, and just press it into place. So ideally you don't want to see glue sticking out. But you might find that if there is a bit of glue on one side, when you flip the leaf over, you've got less glue on the other side, so that you're always going to have one better side. Now you'll find if you have a look at the top of the leaf, where it's sort of crossed over, you've got this little bit that looks a little bit untidy. So all you need to do with that is just take your small scissors and just snip the extra felt off the top. So there's one. So we'll do the next one. So again, you've got your half of the leaf that's got the stem already on, and then you're going to take the glue from the top, a little bit of glue all the way down, cover the stem, and take the other half, and then just carefully lay it on top. Press it into place. And the top of mine it's not actually overlapping too much, but I have got a bit of glue on there. So I'm just going to take my little scissors and give that a snip to tidy it up. Okay. Scissors are completely attached to everything with strings of glue. Okay, so we have 2 leaves, and what we're going to do is we're going to give them a little bit of colour on one side, and I'm going to use the coppery colour again. So I'm going to pick the side of the leaf that I think is maybe the least tidy, so perhaps the side that's got a little bit of glue showing on it, and I'm just going to use the pastel just to rub a little bit of colour. So if you have a look at a magnolia leaf, it does have this, it's like a kind of two-tone colour. It's got a bit of colour on one side, and it's lovely sort of glossy, shiny green on the other side. Now, unfortunately, we can't get the gloss really with felt, but we can definitely get the shape, and we can definitely get the colour. So I'm just going to give that a rub in with my finger. And there we have our 2 leaves. Now I'm going to just take the scissors and I'm just going to trim very carefully. I'm going to trim the bottom end as well, just so that it meets the wire stem neatly, and there's not a lot of felt there at the bottom, and that is because in a second we're going to cover the stems with floristry tape, and it's easier if it's just really nice and neat at the base. So just flip it over and just use the points of the scissors just to snip in there, and on the other side as well. There we go. So this time I'm going to use the dark green, but you can use the brown floristry tape as well. Again, I'm just going to tear off the first little section, and I'm going to cover. So I'm going to start right up at the top. I'm going to try not to add any glue, see if I can get away without adding glue, because I don't really want to add any more bulk at the top here. Might need to add a touch of glue just to get it started. Let's see. Okay, I give in a little bit of glue, just the smallest amount. Just fold that over. There we go. And then just wrap the rest of the stem all the way around. So you want your first couple of wraps to be kind of over and over on top of each other, and then once you feel that it's kind of firmly attached, then you can start taking it down in more of a diagonal, and just keep, as you're sort of spinning the stem round, just keep pressing the floristry tape into place with your fingers just to get it to stick. Round to the bottom, and ideally you do want that to be nice and firmly stuck at the bottom. If it's not, don't worry too much about it, because you're going to be attaching this to the stem of the magnolia anyway, and it's all going to be covered up with more tape. So here's the first one, and we'll do the second one the same. And I'm just going to go straight in with a tiny amount of glue on the end. Just fold it over, get it to stick. Oh, Stephanie says, I'm being called for movie night with the G&T. Can't wait to see all your makes. Oh, thanks for joining us, Steph. It's always great to have you here. Enjoy your movie and your G&T. Sounds great. 'Tis Friday after all, isn't it? Okay, so just taking it down diagonally, giving it a good squeeze all the way down, and then just tear it off at the end. So we've got one bloom and two leaves. Now we want the leaf to have the coppery side under, and there's kind of the plain green side on the top. So plain green on the top, and then the coppery side is underneath. So when you're positioning these, you just hold them against the stem so that when you bend this out, you've got the green side on the top. Now I've done these ones so that they're more or less positioned in the same place down the stem. So you can see there that I've joined them both at the same time. So you can, that would be the easiest way of doing it. If you want them to be positioned at different places in the stem, you can do that. You can wrap one, and then as you come further down the stem, you can add the other one on. So I'm just going to show you how to position them both at the same time. So I'm just going to hold both stems together. You can always bend all of the wire and get everything into position after you've got all of this joined. The main thing is to get everything sort of stuck first of all. And I'm going to use the brown. So I'm using the brown tape because it's matching the colour of the stem. I'll just tear off that little bit there. And I'm literally just going to start by holding all three together. I might need to put some glue on it, but let's just see how I go. I'm giving it a little bit of a stretch as I'm pulling it round. And I'm going to go over and over in the same place until I feel that it's really secure. And when I feel it's secure, then I'm going to start angling it down and come all the way down. And you can see that one of the stems, one of the leaves, the tape is a little bit raggy at the end, but it doesn't matter because when I bring this brown tape down, that's going to cover everything up. Once you've covered up the stems from the leaves, just keep going. So just keep taking the tape all the way down to the base of the stem. And that way you don't have this kind of loose end halfway down. All the way down. And then if you need to put a little bit of glue on the end, and I think I will just put a very little bit on the end just to keep it secure. Just a touch. Just roll that into place. There we go. So once you have your leaves in place, then you can start positioning everything. So let me just move this over. Everything's glued. There we go. And I think I can, let me move this out of the way. There we go. In fact, let me just, there we are. So here we go. It's looking very kind of straight up and down, so I want it to look a little bit more natural with a bit of a curve in it, and you literally just bend the wire, and it feels really nice because you've got the 3 stems of floristry wire in there, so it feels really nice and kind of secure. And then you can bend, give the leaves a bit of a bend out the way as well. And then if you want to sort of move the petals around, it's very bright, isn't it? There you go. So there's the original one, and there's our new one from tonight. So I hope you enjoyed that. And as always, I've loved teaching you how to make another new flower. I can't wait to see you for our next workshops. I'll just show you what we've got coming up. So we've got the cornflowers and the poppies in no particular order. So here are the cornflowers. So we're going to make, we'll just make one, but you in your felt packs, which are going to be available over the weekend, they'll be available online. So you'll get enough felt in there to make several cornflowers. And actually, you will need some of this. Okay, so if you're going to make cornflowers, the tips of the stamen have been coated in Tipp-Ex, and I have tried a few different things, including chalk, and Tipp-Ex is definitely the thing that works the best. So Tipp-Ex, or some, if you've got some white paint, but I even tried like white nail polish, and it just soaks into the felt. So the Tipp-Ex is really good for those. And then the other thing to show you is the poppy. So the poppy, you can see that the leaves are made in the same way that I've shown you tonight in the two halves. And the thing to tell you about the poppy is the center of the poppy is actually needle felted. So if you have some black wool for felting, that's a great thing to put in the middle of the poppy to make the seed pod. If you don't have any felting wool or felting needles, you can easily make it without the center. You would just make a larger stamen piece for the middle of the poppy, but it is felted in the middle. Okay, and yeah, I'll see you in the Facebook group, and have a lovely weekend, everybody, and I can't wait to see your magnolias. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.